All right. Today I'm going to be talking about some of the most common cold email lead generation mistakes with some examples and how to fix them. So I have some pretty crappy emails that I pulled out of my spam folder here, and I thought I would show you some really poor emails. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to have 21 mistakes that you should avoid, and these are super common. And if you're making one of these mistakes, you're probably killing your odds of closing more business. And it's important you watch till the end so you don't miss any of these mistakes. And also at the end of the video, I'm going to be giving away my lead generation training sheet. I'll talk about that more at the end, but you can click the link down below in the description to see how I do all of my lead generation automated and how I outsource it for very cheap. It's so clear of a training that you can give it to a virtual assistant and they will do it for you without any issues. It's a great document if you want to generate more leads. But this is more about the actual email targeting and the email itself. So let's jump in. Number one, no personalization. As you can see here, I'm going to make this full screen. This email is garbage. It starts out hi without my name, and they start up talking about themselves. We believe in your ideas, and it's time to turn them into a reality. If you look at how many, the entire the opening line of an email should always have a customized sentence about the person. So if I'm sending an email to somebody, a cold email or something, you want the first opening line of the email to be custom. For example, this email that I sent to this guy Angel actually turned into a client. I closed him. He's a really cool guy. And look at the difference between this email and this one. Not to mention all the links and the bolding and how long it is. We'll get to that. But the personalization, their first sentence was about them. We started out about them. This one starts out about him. Read your interview with Voyage Miami, and it's awesome that you've been a developer since your early high school years. This is clearly all about him. It's specific. It's a personalized compliment, and it's so specific that no one else would receive a compliment like this. That is how unique it should be and how personalized it is. Generic crap is not going to fly. You don't need to make every single first line totally custom, but at the very least, the opening line should be about them, not about you. So if you're going on Clutch, for example, which is a directory for agencies, and you're trying to sell to them, you could say like, hey John, was browsing on Clutch when I found agency name and love the work you did with past clients. So you could say, found you on Clutch and found, Thoughtbot while looking on Clutch and love the work you did with BP. Something like that. This has no personalization. It's pretty crappy. So if you're not writing a personalized compliment for every email, you're missing out on literally 10 times more responses. Okay, number two, no case study. Actually, I skipped one. Sorry. Number two is no first name. This is another one that bugs me. They didn't even say anything here. They didn't say hi there. They just had an empty opening here. And this one too, they said hi. And this one, they said hi there. If you don't even know the name of the person you're reaching out to, really? It's so obvious that you put this into a mass list of 10,000 people and blasted it out. This is terrible. And if you're going to reach out to someone, at least call them by name. Just show them that you know their name, at least. Number one. Number two, not only do you want to use their name just because you should address them by their name, it also gets their attention. Dale Carnegie talks about the sweetest name in the dictionary being your own. It gets your attention. It makes you happier. You automatically respond when someone says your name. And so when you're in your inbox and you see your name in your inbox, it does grab your attention. And almost all emails now have the name. So if you don't have that, at least you're really behind. You are just really missing out. Okay, number two, or I guess this is three. Number three, no case studies. When you're reaching out to somebody, an effective email has a case study. So for example, here, this is a made-up case study, but we just said, reaching out because we recently helped Imagery Winery create a brand reel for their website and marketing efforts that helped them bring in an additional $1.2 million in revenue from the campaign. So what did we do? We made a brand reel for their website. What did it do? It made them $1.2 million. And then we asked them the call to action. But the point is, this is a case study, and I would send this out to other wineries. For example, Belinda Weber is the consumer of marketing at Duckhorn Wine Company. They're a Golden Goose company. They're making tens of millions of dollars a year. They can definitely afford to pay us $100,000 for a video, especially if that video is going to make them $1 million. That's how you use a case study. Going back to this generic crap, this is making another mistake that I'm going to mention in a second. But aside from the fact that you can't read it because it's so long, there's no mention of a case study in here. They don't talk about any results they've gotten for anybody else. It's just a big blab of. I haven't even read the entire email. I just know it's garbage. I read the first sentence and it was terrible. And that's what happens. You have a ginormous email. The first sentence is so long, or the first sentence is about you, or the person emailing you writes all about them, and then the rest of the email is a giant wall of text, and you're not going to read that. If the entire first sentence has nothing to do with you, you have no idea who it is, it's just garbage, and then you see like a giant wall of text, and you've got 10 other emails to get to in the next few minutes, you're not going to respond to this. You're just going to throw it in the trash, along with the other 100 you get a day. So the personalized first line is meant to set you apart from the crowd, get them to open the email, make them think it's from a friend, and get them to read the rest of your email. Which the next part of the email, if you see here, is a case study. It's literally, if you want to make money from cold emails, it's literally give them a compliment, mention a case study, and ask them if they want to do the same thing. That's all you have to do. And in this case, that's not happening. So number 1, I said no personalization. Number 2, no first name. Number 3, no case study. Number 4, generic emails. No one likes generic emails. What do I mean by that? Generic means it's not specific. When you send an email to a coworker, you're emailing them directly. It's obvious when you email them, or to a friend. It's obvious that the email was written for them specifically. You wouldn't send the same email to like a million people unless you're sending spam or trying to bug them for something. It triggers something in people's brains that says this is a scam, or this is a salesperson, or this is just junk. But when they get an email from their friend, if you think about it this way, every single email in your inbox is either going to be highly personalized or it's going to be like spam, basically. It's like either personalized and from a friend or a coworker, or it's like a newsletter or like a cold email or something, or spam. So you want to fall in the personalized category, and this is falling in the spam because it's super generic. Now, you can use a generic, because the thing is though, if you're going to send an email to 100 people at a time, you do have to be somewhat generic, right? Like in this script, I would change their first name, this entire first line, and the company name here. But everything else will be the same, so this case study doesn't change. So part of the email is generic. But the way that you get around that, and you can even have a generic first line like I mentioned, as long as it's about them in some capacity, it can be generic. But the trick is that your targeting is so laser focused, you're only emailing the director of marketing at wineries in California between $10 and $20 million in revenue. And so you're so specific. The director of marketing at a winery, they're all going to have similar problems. So if you make your copy speak to their problems exactly, even if you send it to 100 marketing directors for wineries, they all have the same issue. So you can make it seem like the email is written one-to-one if you're really good at writing good copy. And you wouldn't really know that without testing, which is another thing. But the idea is you can get away with it. But if you're going to do generic, it has to be super specific targeting. And generally speaking, most people screw that up. And even if you are using good targeting, it's always best practice to have a customized compliment in every single email. You'll get much better results, like 10 times better results. So number 4 was generic. Number 5 is a bad call to action. So you can see here, I want to talk about call to action here. So this email has a good call to action. Basically, the call to action is, are you interested in doing the same for their company? And if you are, let me know, and I'll send a few times over to chat. So clearly, if this case study is interesting to them at all, they're going to respond back saying, yes, let's get on the phone. And that's the CTA. And not only is it specific, it's also a question. And I actually have a question mark right here. So what a lot of people get wrong is they don't actually ask a question in their email. They just send the email. They might say, let me know if you have any interest. The question mark itself makes them, it's like you're asking them a question, which compels them to respond, which means your response rates will be higher, much higher. On the flip side, in this email, for example, you can't even get to the bottom of the screen, but it's just a huge wall of text. And there's no call to action here. There's not a single question mark. Do you see a single question? What is this about? In this one, are there any questions? No, it's just a bunch of crap. Right here, are you next? That's a crappy, but that's not even a specific CTA. Like, am I next for what? Like, no one's gonna get this far down before they see this. This is terrible. And this one as well. There's no questions here. Looking forward to hearing from you. And there's no CTA. If you do any kind of marketing or anything, you should know that the call to action is the most important part of anything. Whether you're on a landing page, whether you're on a blog post, whether you're on a product page, you're on a category page, even on a sales call. You have to always have a call to action. What's your next step? What is the next thing you have to do? People need to be told what to do. And that's the same for an email. You have to have a good call to action. If you're not using a call to action that's specific, you're fucking it up. And the call to action should pretty much always be a phone call. If you're doing cold email to sell something, it should be because you're trying to book a meeting. That's your only call to action. You do not want to get them on the phone for anything, or you don't want to do anything else. The entire point of the email is to set an appointment. So your call to action should be, do you want to discuss this further? I can send over a few times. Or mind if we set up a call to chat? Or do you have 30 minutes next week for a call? Very specific CTAs, okay? So that is number 5. Number 6, sending a wall of text. And I've already touched on this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. When you get an email that's like the size of a novel, or it's so large like this, it doesn't even like fit on my screen, there's something wrong. No one's going to read this. Your email should be 3 or 4 sentences, like max, like no more than 5. Like my emails are less than like 100 words. Like, for example, this email might be, let's see, 1 sentence, 2. It's 4 sentences long. And honestly, I probably could remove this sentence and just say, if you're interested in doing the same for Duckhorn, mind if I send over a few times to chat? ? And this could be all 1 sentence. This is probably like 75 words. It's so specific. It's so short. It's respectful of their time. It's so quick and succinct. It could be read on a phone screen without having to scroll up or down on the phone. Imagine having this on your phone. I mean, Jesus, that would be a nightmare. In fact, I could probably even show you if I go into Inspect Element. I mean, this is ridiculous. Look at this. How are you going to look at all this? This is insane. That's like, no one's going to read this if they don't know who you are. So you can't send a wall of text. You should be sending a few sentences. If your idea is too complicated to sell with more than 2 or 3 sentences, it's too complex. You shouldn't be selling it. You need to work on your messaging. Okay, what's next? The next 2 would kind of go hand in hand, so that I call this 7 and 8. 7 and 8 are using bolding and links. So as far as bolding goes, let me know when you're emailing a friend or a coworker when you ever bold something. The answer is never. And so when you see bolding in an email, it automatically makes you think they're trying to sell me something. Why are they bolding this? It is just obviously a commercial email. It turns people off. No bolding. Do not bold your emails. Should be very casual. All the same fonts. No crazy bolding or italics or like anything crazy. It's just plain text, like you're writing to a friend. And then no links is number 8. Why are links bad? It goes back to the call to action. When you are emailing someone, you should be cold emailing a business owner to get them on the phone. That means the entire call to action of the email is to get them to respond by saying yes to set up a phone call. That being said, if you send them a link, they might click the link, but then they're not going to respond to you because they clicked the link. That was their CTA. They didn't respond. You want to eliminate all other calls to action aside from the response. And if they do respond and they want to see your website or something like that, then you can send them over more information, but you still want to book them on that call, and you got to be careful with that too. You always want to push them to a phone call, and sending over links, especially in the first email, is a no-go. So you want to avoid that. Number 9 is making your email very me-centric. Me-centric meaning the email is all about you and not about them. So let me give you an example. All right, so this is an example that I wanted to show you of a poorly written outreach email from the perspective of how me-centric it is. So number 1, it again starts out about them, no personalized first line. That's one thing. No case study, like you saw, it's missing that. They're including a link, as you can see. There's no call to action here, which is another problem. But the thing I really wanted to highlight here is how me-centric this is. Me-centric is when you talk about yourself instead of them. You have to understand that they don't care about you. They don't care about your service. They don't care about anything about you unless it has any relation to them and their problems, which is why with your copy, there's a big difference in using the word I versus the word you, or me versus your, or whatever, mine versus yours. If I tell a story and say, I went to the store and I got all this candy and I felt so sick after I ate it all and it was insane, I couldn't believe it. Or if I say, when you go to the store, think about when you get candy and you eat too much and da-da-da. Just by changing that one word, it changes the entire way you listen to that, right? And so in an email, it's the same thing. Look how many times I is used versus you. I recently reached out on LinkedIn. I'd send over a brief email. In my agency, myself and my agency, we work closely with businesses. You know, we specialize. We have our clients. We've managed. The first two times that they say you are at the very end of the email, and they still once again say where and we. Two more times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 me's and only 2 you's. That should be flipped on its head. You want to use you and your at least in the very first sentence exclusively, not at the bottom, because when they start out with this sequence, it's a lot of text. It's not very specific. It's kind of long, and it's all about me and not them. They're not going to make it to the bottom, and if they do, they don't have a call to action that's clear enough to respond. So that's another example. All right, what about the follow-ups? Another quick one is that people don't follow up. The follow-up is a whole other topic I need to make a video about, but following up, if you're not sending follow-up emails, you're missing out on literally like 75% of your responses. Like, in a nutshell, your first follow-up should be, well, this is a whole other topic. So if you want to know about follow-ups, let me know, and I'll make a video about following up. But the follow-up is even more important than the initial email. Your follow-ups will win you many more meetings than the initial email. I'm telling you. And this is the same with anything in life and in sales. Always follow up. Okay, number 11. Offering a menu of services. So if you're offering a menu of services or features like this, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. If you send over like a giant menu, like, hey, we do web design, mobile app design, all these different things. Like, do you need any of this stuff? You're being so generic and vague, and if you get on the phone, they're not going to have a specific problem in mind. They're just going to say, yeah, I thought I would check you guys out, see what you do. And you're just like, well, I mean, if you get on the phone with the right person, you probably can sell them, but they have to have interest in doing something, and you're not going to get interest by sending over a menu of services like this. First of all, no one's going to read it. Second of all, it looks very spammy and commercial, which is what we're trying to avoid. But it's also not specific. If I instead send you an email that's so specific, I say exactly what I did, the problem I solved, and the solution. Like, I could say, I recently helped Pluralsight use organic search marketing to outrank their competitor and drive over 400,000 clicks and 100,000 new signups within 6 months. That's a very clear service. I use organic search marketing, so basically SEO, to drive over 100,000 signups. That's a big deal. Versus, the menu of services where it's like, what do you do? It's just not good. Don't offer a menu of services. The next thing is typos. You really don't want to include typos or bad spelling in your copy. It's just don't do it. It's such an easy mistake to make, and it's such an easy thing to fix. You can totally avoid typos. I mean, it's just a matter of not being lazy, double checking your email, double checking your data, and making sure you don't have like weird stuff like LLC or like Inc. in your company name data, or having misspelled first names, or having incorrect emails that are going to bounce, or having just typos in your script, or mismatching the names, so you're emailing the person who's named John, but instead the data says like Joanne or something. Like, you don't want to screw up the typos or the data. So just double check. Always double check your copy, your data, and make sure everything's clean. Because if it's not, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. The next mistake people make a lot is not tweaking based on the data. So you want to be tracking every single test and optimizing every 20 or 30 emails that you send. And this is the way that I do it, that we do it at X27, is with this spreadsheet here, and we track like, okay, what niche were we testing? Like, how many emails did we send and what date was it? What was the open rate on that campaign? What subject line were we using? How many replies did we get, and how many meetings would we get? So you can see here, it's very scientific. It's not just spray and pray. It's like, okay, send 100 emails, but change one thing in every 20 emails. So you can see, let me make this a bit bigger. You can see here in the first like 5 emails, these first 5 tests, I was only changing the subject line. So you can tell that this email, and I think I may have tested. I think I was just putting in dummy data, but the point is, like, in this, you can tell here, like, okay, my company and their company name is clearly getting the best open rate, right? Like, quick questions doing all right, This one's doing pretty poorly. If you're not getting above an 80% open rate, though, you have to rewrite your subject line. At least 70%, but 80% is ideal. Because if you think about it, if you're not getting at least 80% of people to open your email, you're wasting a lot of potential. And like literally you're wasting, let's say you only get a 20% open rate, it means you're wasting 80% of the work you put into the emails and the time spent researching and any money you invested in those emails. Granted, you can email an old list that hasn't opened your email again in the future. It's a different topic, but you can reuse leads if they didn't open. And even after enough time, you can reuse old leads that did open. But the point is, for the most part, you need to make sure your emails are actually getting opened, because if they don't get opened, the rest of it doesn't matter. The copy doesn't matter. The targeting doesn't matter. So if you know that, okay, this email is not getting opened, let's rewrite the subject line and try again. Or you can do 5 at one time and use the best one, which is this, okay? It's like, okay, so are we getting opened? Yes. Are we getting responses? In this case, yes. But let's say we were only getting one response, but we're getting opened a lot. It's like, well, okay, if we're getting opened, but the response isn't there, maybe the copy needs to be tweaked. So then you rewrite the body of the email. And if the body of the email is getting responses and it's getting open, but you're not getting any meetings, it means your case study is bad, or the market doesn't like what your offer is. And then you can just keep testing. But you're not going to be able to test and optimize without tracking like this, and you need to be doing this. So that is a major way. I mean, think about it. If you can take your meeting book rate from 1% to like 6% or 10%, you're literally going to increase your revenue by like 6 or 10x just by booking more meetings with the same amount of leads. It's really crazy. And your cost per meeting will go down by 1/6 to 1/10 of what you're paying. If you have a campaign that's 6 or 10 times more effective, basically. The next one, number 14, is asking, who should I reach out to? This one is kind of, I don't have an example, but it's pretty dumb. Because if you're reaching out to somebody, you should know who you're reaching out to. You should know who's going to be buying this. It just makes you look stupid and like you didn't do your research if you ask, who should I be reaching out to? Reach out to the person who you think should be buying it, like the CEO or the director of marketing or whoever. And if they respond back and they get on the phone with you, great. If they forward it off to somebody else, then you get on the phone with them. And either way, you're getting on the phone with the right person. So don't ask that. It's killing your outreach. Next is number 15 is not validating your emails. So a lot of people will send emails that are to addresses that are not real, and they will send accept all or invalids, and they end up getting a large bounce rate. The problem with bouncing is you're going to end up in spam, and if you're ending up in spam, then well, you're not going to have your emails read, and you're screwed. So you definitely want to make sure you validate every single email. I like to use NeverBounce. NeverBounce.com is great, and there's actually a Gmail. There's a trick that you can use with Gmail to validate your emails if NeverBounce can't do it either, which is actually an interesting trick that I could share if you want. On that note, one other mistake that people make, I think, is reaching out only with their main domain. Like if you run company.com and you email from company.com, you're almost guaranteed to burn your domain. So from that perspective, you need to make sure that you use a domain that is not the same and you redirect it to your homepage. Why? Because that way, if you are doing outreach from a separate domain, in case it gets burned by accident, which if you're doing things right, it shouldn't, but it always could. If it gets burned by accident, you can just buy another domain and keep going. And actually, I would even have 3 or 4 or 5 domains going at the same time. Because if you use your main domain, you screw up your main domain, it's going to be a pain in the neck to fix it, and you're going to have clients like wondering why your emails are going to spam. It's just kind of a nightmare, so I wouldn't do that if I were you. So after that, you also want to avoid not warming up your emails. That's number 16. I think I added the separate domain as a bonus, but number 16 is not warming up your domain. So when you set up a new email, you need to warm it up, and you can actually use a cool tool called Lemlist. They have a feature called LemWarm to do this. And actually, that's actually funny. It happened just right now. Let me show you what LemWarm does. So the whole idea behind, and don't read this yet. It's kind of funny. I don't want to show you so you don't keep reading this until you're ready. But basically, when you're sending emails, a real email, if you think about what a real email would look like to an email provider, they probably if you're using your email for actual personal use or business use, You might send 10, 20 emails a day. Almost all of them will get a reply because you're emailing your friend. You'll probably have newsletters coming in, and you'll have an equal amount of people emailing you as you're emailing, generally speaking. You're not going to send a million emails at a time. You're not going to send 1,000 emails a day, and you're not going to have 1,000 emails out and only 10 in. And you're also, and it's sort of like if you're familiar with SEO, the strength of your website domain, it's similar for an email domain, or like the email reputation. And new email domains, I told you buy a new domain. The problem is a fresh domain is less trusted by Google, because if you think about it, an established company like Uber.com, their emails are clearly like Uber's clearly like a legitimate company with a ton of authority, so that they're not going to be spamming people like crazy. But if you just buy a brand new domain if you just buy a brand new domain and then send 1,000 emails at a time, you're clearly spamming people and trying to use it for like a mass email, which is not good. So the email clients try and prevent you from doing that by monitoring your use, especially when you're early on. So the way that you make it look like a real email, and I can make a video about this, is you warm up your inbox. So you do that by setting a profile picture, having a signature, subscribing to newsletters, only sending a few emails a day at a time to start and ramping up slowly over time, and having emails going back and forth with your friends consistently, because a natural, normal email would have people emailing you and you emailing them and back and forth. And so you want to have people emailing you back and forth so that your outbound emails and your inbound emails received are somewhat similar, which makes your emails seem more real, and not used purely for spam and stuff. The other thing is, if you're using personalized first lines and you're not sending 1,000 emails at a time, you're not going to spam people in the first place. So like, I'm not saying that you should fake it and send spam, because you really shouldn't spam people. I'm just saying that you're even if you do personalize your outreach and you do send only 20 emails at a time, you still have a chance of hitting spam. So warming up your email is a great way to avoid that, especially for a new domain. And what this tool does, which is really cool, and I'll link it down below if you want, is it will automatically everyone who opts into LemWarm, it's lemless, but this specific tool is called LemWarm. And everyone, let's say there's 1,000 people, probably more than that, but let's say 1,000 people are on LemWarm. Everyone who's opted in will send each other emails and the tool will automatically generate like text to make it seem real. And the email client can't tell the difference. But if you read this, like, before tangerines, grapefruits were only peaches. A kumquat is an ant from the right perspective. The sheep of a rat becomes a splendid duck. Clearly, this is like randomly generated nonsense. But as far as the email is concerned, it looks real. It's 1-to-1. I think I have like 10 people. I think I'm sending 10 of these a day, and I'm getting 10. It will also mark your email as if your email lands in spam in someone else's inbox, it will automatically uncheck you from spam, which is a great way to keep your sender score high. This way, you can have your email deliverability high. You avoid the spam filter or folder, and you will have your emails opened. Because if you're hitting spam, no one's going to see your email, which is going to affect your open rates, and that means that, like we said, you're going to have trouble. That was a long way of saying warm up your emails. And I think I kind of alluded to number 17, which is don't send too many emails at one time. If you're sending too many emails at one time, then you're going to hit spam. And you're not going to... There's two things here. If you send 100 emails at a time or 1,000 emails at a time, 100 is not too bad, but 1,000 at a time, you are going to likely trigger a spam trap, because if you send too many in a day or too many at once, it looks pretty suspicious, because no human can send that many emails at one time. I wouldn't recommend sending more than 50 or 60, maybe 70 personalized emails a day from one email, just to be safe. Maybe 100 max, but I wouldn't really go much higher than that. If you want to send more than 100 a day, then have like 3 or 4 emails at the same time, and you can do that. But don't send a bunch at one time. The other reason you don't want to send a bunch at one time is because if you do that, you won't be able to have your test data properly, right? If let's say you're reaching out, let's say your whole entire market is software companies, right? There might only be like 3,000 good software companies that you can reach out to. So if that's the case, you don't want to burn a third of your entire market with one email. That probably sucks, because then you're going to run out of leads very quickly. But if you send 50 emails or 100 emails even, but ideally 20 at a time, you can test in small batches, get the data, and optimize your campaign. And so once your 20 email test is getting a 5 or 10% meeting book rate, then you can send 100 emails or even 1,000 if you want. And you'll know that you're going to get 50 or 100 meetings out of those emails and not just 1 or 2, which would suck. So don't send too many emails at one time. Number 17, you don't want to send images in your emails. You don't want to attach a deck in your emails. You don't want to send a, you don't really, video, sending a video in an email is okay if it's a unique video for each person, which is very custom, which is a different strategy. But in this case, for most cold emails, you don't want to send anything over aside from text. You don't want to send an image. You don't want to send a deck. You don't want to send anything, just the text. So don't send images. It's going to maybe hit spam, and it's going to look like spam, and it's just not good. So we're rounding the corner here. Number 19 is robotic copy. Okay, robotic copy is just like sounding like a robot and kind of saying like, I don't know, like just generic, like, based on your current needs and requirements, here is your proposal for a new website we will be doing from scratch. Your website will be having all the modern features and will be more easy to use, more professional, more eye-catching, and more easily manageable. Website goals. We understand business development for websites relevant to your industry, okay, it's just, this is garbage nonsense that's generic and robotic, and you don't want to sound robotic. The opposite of robotic is like a person, like a human being, and you want to sound like a person, casual, friendly, and giving customized compliments, that kind of thing. Okay, number 20, bad targeting. So if your case studies with the winery, as you can see here, you don't want to reach out to, like race car companies. It doesn't make sense. You want to have your people that you're reaching out to be as close to your case study as possible. So how do you know who to target? You look at your case studies and you think, okay, I've helped a software company get more leads. So how am I going to get more clients? Well, what did I do? I did lead generation, so I can sell that. But who am I going to sell it to? If you think about it this way, there are 3 reasons why someone will or will not buy from you. They don't need it, they can't afford it, or they don't think you can actually deliver. They don't trust you. Number 1, do you need more leads? Everyone needs more leads, so that's check. Can they afford you? Well, if they're a large enough company, then they can afford you because they have budget available, and that's why we go after golden geese companies, so check. Do they trust you? Well, that's the hard part. How would you show someone that you can do this? Well, you can make a great offer and that kind of thing, but the real best way to do it is to say, well, they might think, have you done this before? And more importantly, have you done this before for someone like me? Because you may have helped a pizza restaurant do this, but I'm a barber shop, and we're different, right? And you can even tell them, like, hey, it's very similar, right? But they're going to say, I want to see something similar. So you want to be as niche down as possible, and you can always go into shoulder niches. So, for example, if I have a case study with a software company, like let's say I helped Dom and Tom in New York City, they're a mobile app developer, the most relevant agency to pitch are mobile app developers, software developers, custom software development companies, web app companies, any kind of software or development or design company is like the most relevant company to my case study. A shoulder niche of that would be other agencies like marketing agencies, branding agencies, design agencies. Those are shoulder, they're related. And then out from there, you can get broader and broader, but you really want to start being specific, and that's how you target. That's how you get good responses, and that's how you make your copy so laser targeted that it's insane. Like, you don't know, when I reach out to mobile app companies, using our mobile app case study, I'm talking about how we helped a mobile app developer add $1 million in 6 months. I had like a 20% meeting book rate with other mobile app developers. They were like, I love the personalization. Your case study was just like my company. Like, it works, guys. I'm telling you, it's insane. The last thing, the second to last thing, number 20, is going to be, let's see here. Number 20 is going to be using a poor subject line. So you can see here the subject line I'm using is quick question. That is very short, very simple. Your subject line should do 2 things. It should, number 1, get opened, and number 2, not turn off the prospect from opening your email. So how do you get opened? You pique curiosity. How do you turn off your prospect from opening? You send something like this: website proposal, New York Design Services, premium digital agency. This is obviously commercial. I'm going to delete it when I see the subject line. Like, I would just delete this. If I saw this, I would just delete it. There's no way I would even open this. Quick question though. Well, that is fine. And when you combine that with the fact that you can see the first sentence of an email in the opening line, if you combine that with a quick question, so all they see is quick question and a compliment here, they're going to open it almost every time. And then the last thing, your last mistake, is not using my lead generation training document that I made. This thing is bulletproof, and if you want to know how to generate leads on autopilot or have a virtual assistant help you with generating leads on autopilot, you need this document. This is an A to Z tutorial on how to go from your lead bucket, which I explained, to a sheet of perfect emails. All the people are the right company, the right decision makers, the right emails. They're all valid. It even shows you how to guess emails very quickly that most email tools can't find, or really any email tool can't find. It shows you how to validate emails that email validators don't know how to validate. And it shows you how to do it all quickly. And better yet, it's all broken down into Loom videos that are, very quick. And this one's 4 minutes long. It's very simple. It's very to the point. It's very direct. And it shows you step by step how to do it. And the best part is, if you don't want to do lead generation, you just want to this is a 2-minute video. How hard can it be, right? If you don't want to do lead generation and you just want to hire someone on Upwork and pay them 20 cents a lead, and you can get 100 leads for 20 bucks, this is the document for them. Because if you don't train them, they're going to give you probably crappy stuff. They're not going to do it properly. But if you put up a job, hire 5 freelancers and give them 20 leads each as a test, and give each one this document, some of them aren't going to even listen to it because they're morons. You can fire them, and the rest are going to do a great job, and you can keep them on, and you can pay them to do this for you. So that's the last mistake, is not using my training document. So that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions. I am really tired and I want to go to bed, so I'm going to hit the hay. But I had a good time making this video, and I hope you got some value from it. That being said, let me know if you have any questions about cold email lead generation, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.